welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. This is the week that was, and there is a lot to celebrate. The Way of Edan Book 1 in the Edan trilogy has come out, and it was really a wonderful reception. I could not be more grateful to all of you who have read or intend to read and also have reviewed The Way of Edan. I am just more grateful than I can possibly express for the support and for the insights and the analyses and all of it. I have really enjoyed getting feedback on this book that I have been working on, not entirely in isolation for the last 18 plus years, but mostly in isolation. So it's really been wonderful to hear your thoughts and just to see what people think and to engage and interact. And I've had a blast. This has been as wonderful as I ever could have imagined. And I'm so excited to share the rest of the story with all of you and whoever else wants to read it. But just feeling a lot of gratitude, feeling very at peace and happy and being in the moment, enjoying this, but also enjoying getting book 2 ready for all of you. It's a lot of fun for me to edit and to tweak, and maybe that's why it took so long. I enjoy editing so much, but I am getting it ready for the June 21 publication, and I'm very confident we're going to be well ahead of schedule in that regard. The artist is already working on the cover, and when the artist is done, then my cover designer will start, will get in action, and I'm just very excited to see how that comes out. I've already seen early drafts of the cover art, and I think it's going to be a really cool cover. So yeah, this has just been wonderful. I also want to tell you about my author website, philipchaseauthor.com. I'll put a link in the description to my author website, philipchaseauthor.com. Philip with one L. Philip with one L. So a really wonderful individual made this website for me, and it's just really cool. And I am delighted with how it came out, just aesthetically, but what's on there. And it is a work in progress. There will be other things most likely added to the website as time goes by. But it's a really wonderful thing to have an author website. And I have a little essay on the website that tells you about what's behind the Edan trilogy, some of my, I guess you could say, important influences and that sort of thing. So I just had a great time working with this person who did this website for me, a wonderful, very generous person. And if any of you authors out there are looking for a cool person to work with for your author website, let me know in the comments, and I will give you the name of this person who's been just so tremendously awesome to work with. And it was just a case all around. This has been a great thing about producing this trilogy so far. I have really been so fortunate in the people that I have had the opportunity to work with, from my developmental editor to my artist and cover designer and map maker to the person who made this website for me, and of course the person who's doing the audiobook narration, and you name it. I mean, I've worked with some really wonderful people. So that's been a great part of this process too. So on the channel, let's talk about the channel. I had some videos come out since the last episode of the week that was. One was a discussion of Vagabond. This is part of the continuing discussion that I'm doing with Murphy Napier, and we are switching back and forth between our channels, my channel and her second channel, for these Vagabond discussions, just like we did with Vinland Saga. It's been a ton of fun, and I've enjoyed every single conversation with Murphy. It's always added to my appreciation for this series, which I'm enjoying tremendously. There is some really cool incorporation of theme in this manga that I am really into. And so, I'm looking forward to the end of this. So we're a little more than halfway through now. And at this point, I don't have the physical with me for the next discussion because it's just so hard to get a hold of the physical copies of Vagabond. There are certain ones like number 4, the Visbig bind up, number 4 that I ordered months ago and it still hasn't come. So I'm going to be relying on digital copies because some of the bind ups that we're now finding ourselves, we're in the latter half of the series, it's just almost impossible to get a hold of. So I'm going to be relying on the digital copies, but still, and I'm sure that I will enjoy the experience just as much. And what else have I done on the channel? Well, I had an episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy with Karina, and it was so cool to sit down and talk with her about fantasy in Germany, and to learn about some of the popular fantasy stories over there of these most recent years, and to talk to her about her own writing. She is a writer who writes in German, fantasy, both kind of YA level, but also some adult. So just really a wonderful human being too, just a very kind person and very knowledgeable as well. So I had a wonderful time talking with her and learning. She was so generous to tell me all about the state of fantasy in Germany and to share some of her favorite fantasy reads. And most of them are, in fact, translated into English. So if you're curious and you don't read German, they are, for the most part, accessible. So that was a great conversation. Also had a discussion with a great group of people about The Gallant, which is a novella by Janny Wirtz, and Janny Wirtz herself was part of the discussion. It is always so much fun to sit down and talk with Janny Wirtz, who is a fountain of knowledge about fantasy and life in general. She has been, I've had the wonderful opportunity to speak to her several times now on the channel, and every single time I learn something. And also present during this discussion was P.L. Stewart, the author of A Drowned Kingdom, which, by the way, I hope to be reading in the next couple months. I'm really looking forward to that. But P.L. brings his wisdom to that discussion as well, and his insights. And of course, Joanna was the other member of our group. And it's always a joy and a pleasure to chat with Joanna. She is one of the most wonderful persons that I have had the privilege to meet on this platform, and it was just a great group, and I had a grand time reading The Gallant, and which is a kind of a prequel novella to the series of Wars of Light and Shadow, and it is about 500 years before the main series, so it does shed some insights into the world of Aethera, and it also gives you some really cool, I think, views of the magic in that world. So I won't say any more. I don't want to spoil anything, but I really enjoyed that read a lot. Also had a discussion on Jade City. Another great discussion with a wonderful group of people. And this time it was with Bookborn and with Taylor from Made Between the Pages and Jimmy from the Fantasy Network. And wow, what a blast that was. I am very impressed with the opening to the Greenbone Saga, Jade City, and I'm excited to continue in the series. I think that Fonda Lee does a great job of getting you invested in her characters, which are vivid and distinct, and I also really loved the cultural aspects of it, the world building, and the sense of immersion in that place that she gave me through that story. I was entertained, and also, I think, challenged by the incorporation of theme in there. So it struck a good balance for me. And I am very optimistic that I will continue to enjoy that trilogy, especially as so many people really, really praise the third book, Jade Legacy, as being the greatest of that trilogy. So I'm very excited to continue there. Also want to mention that upcoming will be, I mentioned Janny Wirtz earlier, and the Wars of Light and Shadow. Many of you are probably wondering what happened to our Wars of Light and Shadow read-along. Well, that is now finally going to be getting underway, and we are going to have our discussion on Curse of the Mistwraith. This is going to be our spoiler-filled discussion. That's going to be with AP Canavan from A Critical Dragon, and Joanna and Jimmy. And we have that scheduled. That is scheduled for late in this month, the month of April. And it is going to be a ton of fun. And that means that a couple months from then, we'll have our discussion on the second book in the series, and so on and so on. And I do want to mention that the giveaway, the book giveaway, is on. So everybody who entered that during our non-spoiler discussion of Curse of the Mist Wraith, that did include Jenny Wirtz, that happened quite a few months ago, but I have not forgotten, and that giveaway will happen during our discussion, the spoiler discussion of Curse of the Mist Wraith. We'll do the giveaway first, so everyone will have a chance to see who the winner is. And yeah, it's going to be great things there. Also, we have things that I did elsewhere on YouTube, and I had some really wonderful discussions about the Way of Edan with some of my friends here on YouTube. And let's just start with Patrick. I had a grand time talking with Patrick Leo on his channel. Just a non-spoiler discussion of what's behind the trilogy and just whatever. He asked me some great questions. Wonderful to interact with Patrick. He is a pillar of our community and just an all-around wonderful human being. And I could not be happier with the fact that I get to talk with cool people like Patrick, and also the brothers Gwyn. So Ed and Will also had me on their channel for a similar kind of discussion. Now, this one was a live stream, so there were folks interacting with us in the chat. That was a lot of fun. Ed and Will are so gracious and such well-read and such wonderful people. And it was a real privilege to be able to talk with them in a non-spoiler fashion about the Way of Edan. They really get, I think, a lot of my influences, my sources of inspiration, because they are the sons of John Gwyn. And John Gwyn and I definitely grew up reading a lot of the same things and are inspired by a lot of the same things. So Ed and Will have, I think, some really extra great insights into what I'm trying to do as I'm writing this trilogy. So I love talking with them anyway, and it was a grand time. And also, I had a spoiler, well, it did start out spoiler-free, and for the first, actually, I think almost half hour or so, or around half an hour, maybe even more, of a non-spoiler chit-chat, and it was a lot of fun. And then we did get into spoilers, and this was a discussion hosted by Joanna, and it included Murphy Napier and Alan from the Library of Alexandria, and Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, and oh my goodness, it was a ton of fun. We just had a great time. You should watch that video, if only to hear Alan's voice for Dayraven, because Dayraven is the main character of The Way of Edan, and Alan is going to be the audiobook narrator. And he did a kind of reveal for some of the voices that he's going to do for the audiobooks. It was just a wonderful time. It was a great time. And I couldn't be happier to have met such fun and gracious and wonderful people here on this platform. I had a blast talking about my book with these people who've all read it and had really great insights and thoughts. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to talk about your book with people. But when you get into the spoilers and stuff, it's just kind of like I almost can distance myself from the book. I'm part of the conversation. It's a little bit strange, but it's fun to talk about the story as somebody who, for a moment, if I can do that, I think I can just step outside of it and enjoy what they have to say about it and chime in every now and again. So that was a great, great chat. Also had, by the way, a chat with Glenn and Bill over on their channel, Non-Terrestrial Half-Life, about the Tombs of Atuan, which is the second book in the Earthsea series. I just love Ursula Le Guin's writing. She is one of my heroes. She is a big influence on me, and I think on my prose. And so I would like to think anyway that some of Le Guin's magnificent prose perhaps maybe rubbed off on me a little bit there. But she's just a wonderful, wonderful contributor of fabulous stories in our genre. And the Ursi, particularly the Ursi series, for me is foundational. So I really enjoyed talking with Bill and Glenn over there. And that is part of an ongoing discussion series of the Ursi series. So that's what I've been up to, and here's what I'm doing now. I mentioned earlier that I'm reading the digital edition of the Visbig bind-up of Vagabond, so I'm going to be just engaging with it from now on digitally. So I don't have a book to show off here, but I am continuing in that wonderful series. We're going to be doing the 8th bind-up, and so that won't be coming out on Tuesday though. We're skipping a week, and that's mostly on me because I've been busy and reading a lot. And Murphy and I just decided let's take a week off. So there will be a week hiatus from Vagabond, but we'll be back on schedule the following week with the 8th bind-up. And I am also currently reading, about halfway through, Fool's Fate. It's taken me a bit longer than I would like to get through this 3rd book in the Tawny Man trilogy, which I have enjoyed immensely. This one does start out slow, and that is typical of Hobb. Usually it takes me a couple hundred pages to feel like the plot gets going, and this one took maybe more like 300 pages to feel like, okay, now we're engaged in the plot, and we have connected with the characters and everything else, and we've had our tea and all of that, and and nobody can pull that off like Hobb. I mean, she is just brilliant, and I think part of the reason why we love her characters so much is the fact that she takes her time building things up, getting us immersed in such a gorgeous way. So I don't mind that too much, but I will say that this one did take a little bit longer than usual. But now that I'm halfway through, I'm starting to feel like I'm very much pulled into the story, and I'm enjoying it very much. I will probably release a video when I'm all done, a spoiler-filled kind of why you should read, why I love kind of thing, Tawny Man trilogy. And I will give further thoughts when I do that. And I'll have to decide basically where I feel it ranks among the 3 trilogies now that I will have read by Robin Hobb. And so I mentioned the Tombs of Atuan earlier, and so we're going to be continuing in the Ursi books. And next up is The Farthest Shore, which is the 3rd and of the originally was a trilogy, the Ursi trilogy, but Le Guin added to the trilogy in subsequent years. But yes, so The Farthest Shore will be up next, and that is another one that I have so much affection for, and I can't wait to get into and talk about with Bill and Glenn. I'm also going to be continuing with my read of Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. So I haven't started yet, but I will be reading the 2nd book in this tetralogy, and that is Claw of the Conciliator. I have the omnibus edition that has books 1 and 2 here, and I will be continuing my discussion with Matt over on Matt on Books. In fact, Matt will be the one hosting our discussion of Claw of the Conciliator, and that's going to include Paul Williams, who is a PhD student in fantasy. He's a fantasologist, a guy getting his PhD in fantasy, studying fantasy. So great insights from both of them. I hosted the discussion on Shadow of the Torture, and both of them had tremendous insights during that discussion. So I'm really looking forward to getting further into Book of the New Sun, which is one of the very highly regarded reads in speculative fiction. And you can call it science fiction if you like, or fantasy, or who cares really. But it's very provocative, very interesting. I still feel a bit lost, frankly, after reading Shadow of the Torturer, and I'm looking forward to maybe finding my bearings, maybe a little bit more in Claw of the Conciliator. But I'm fascinated by what Gene Wolfe is doing in this series in terms of his statements about language and memory and identity and so much else. So I'm really looking forward to continuing. Another one that I'm really excited to continuing is the Books of Babel. And I am involved in a buddy read with this, and that is including Alan from the Library of Alexandria. and Johan from Library of a Viking. So we have 2 libraries involved in this, and we have Ben from Overly Average Ben and Grace Dion. So there's a group of 5 of us who are reading the books of Babel together. Alan's probably not rereading it, but he knows the series very well, so he can just jump in whenever he wants. But yeah, I loved the opening book in this tetralogy as well, and that was Senlin Ascends, of course. And I hear great things. My colleagues, my friends who are already ahead of me reading The Arm of the Sphinx have had pretty positive reactions. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen here in book 2 of the Books of Babel. And I'll be considering with the Greenbone Saga, with Jade War, and again, very excited to be in this trilogy. And like I said, I hear great things about book 3 especially. And kind of, I don't know, Jade War seems to be sort of ranked right alongside Jade City. What I hear universal agreement about is Jade Legacy is the best. So I'm really looking forward to that, but also to seeing what happens in book 2 as I hear the story kind of expands perhaps. So let's see what I make of it. And I'm sure that Fond du Lis will build on that solid beginning in Jade City. And another one I'm really excited about, and this may actually happen before I read Jade War. I'm going to have this read and reviewed before its release in early May. And this is basically an arc. This is an arc of The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. And I'm really thrilled to be having the privilege of having this arc and being able to give my thoughts on this book before it is released to the wider public. So that's going to be, I mean, he feels, I think, really good about this book. And when an author feels really good about the book, that gets me excited, especially when it's an author as insightful as Mark Lawrence is. He is one of my favorite authors. I have made no secret of that. So it's really exciting for me to have the opportunity to be reading the Book That Wouldn't Burn, which is the opening to the Library trilogy. So yeah, I've got lots going on, and I am really, really excited to be interacting with my friends here on this platform and with all of you in the comments and everywhere else. I'm going to have some videos coming out. I neglected to do a spring TBR, so I need to do that to tell you what I'm going to be up to, theoretically, because it will be highly aspirational, of course. And I've got some other interesting discussions planned. I have some really cool... I'm almost announcing these things today, but I have to wait a little bit before they're super official and ready. But there are some things related to The Way of Edan that I'm really excited about. Some kind of collaborations that are musical in nature. A couple different ones, actually. And so I'm really, really excited about these. And as soon as they're official, I'm going to be announcing them. So some exciting stuff in the future. In the meantime, though, thank you so much for all the support. And I just can't believe how wonderfully the launch of The Way of Edan has gone. I'm so grateful to all of you for your support on this channel as well, and all the interactions and everything else. All right, that's it from me for now. Until next time.